You're still watching the Wednesday edition of New Dawn, and this morning you can set yourself ready, get yourself together, sit properly, because the media is turning the gun on itself. Let's see how it's going to run. We're looking at the 2023 general elections, and we're also looking at the role of the media. So more or less, the media is right at the center stage this morning. And to digest this and ready for the fireworks, we're not going to spare anyone this morning. Let me begin from my immediate right here, Dr. Tunde Alaye, a political scientist, a broadcaster, a veteran.
That's my territory.
You know, so we have you here this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
It's good to be here. And of course, Toby Joseph needs no introduction. He's a media practitioner. We've always seen him, we've had him, we know what he's done, we know. So Toby, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Simiat is also here, so that's making us gender compliant.
No.
Okay, well, slightly, we are, at least
Slightly,
it would have been worse if we had another man on set.
Exactly.
Okay, we're looking at the general elections, 2023 general elections, gentlemen. The role of the media. Maybe we will begin. What is a simple definition of the media? Because these days now, it looks like there is a vast media space. So when we're talking about the role of the media now, what exactly are we talking about? What is the media, Toby?
Okay, I would have wanted Dr. Alaye to start that because he's a lecturer and he can actually lecture us. But let me try to simplify, because just like you said, it's a very wide space, and so there are always different dimensions to the media. But I think the simplest form of defining the media now is the fourth estate of the realm that serves as the watchdog of the society. And what do we mean by watchdog? It means somebody who keeps in check the different arms and tiers of government and stands as a mirror of the society. To say, hey, society, look at yourself. This is where you are. This is who you are. This is what you are. You of course look at the three arms of government. You look at the executive, the legislative arm, you look at the judiciary, who are supposed to watch each other, all right, and check each other. So who checks those who are doing the checking? So that should be the job of the media, and I think that is what we are doing. And at the same time, doing the checking when it comes to the society in general, the people. So who is telling the people you are getting it wrong? Who is telling the people this is right? Who is telling parents, social leaders, religious leaders, traditional leaders that this is where the rot is and this is what we need to do to tackle it? So that is the most important role of the media, apart from the basics of informing, educating, reforming, and the likes.
All right. Now let's come to doctor, because now this is the technical perspective of it. Because the media is going to be under serious fireworks this morning. Serious firework. And, now, but let's begin. Now, how many dimensions are we looking at? In those days, it used to be print, electronic, you know, and all of that. Now, what's the vast space of the media now?
Thank you very much. If you're talking about what are the branches or the units, basically, we still have the print and the electronic media. But, you know, the world is evolving, and journalism is also a continuous thing, as it were. You cannot talk about having journalism without proper government being put in place, or talking about the coverage of journalism or coverage of the media without looking at the government in place or the system of government that is also operational. Take, for instance, we are talking about a democratic government. Nigeria is a democratic state. you will agree with me, as part of the fundamental features of democracy is press freedom.
Okay.
So if you are looking at the roles or the coverage of the media, you also need to be very conscious of the roles of the government. Because the government determines or encourages the roles of the media.
Yeah, but if you say that, is it supposed to be? Is the media supposed to be guided by the activities of?
I don't mean the word being guided now.
Okay.
I'm talking about being encouraged.
Okay.
You can't talk of having a very an ideal reportage or having accurate reportage or media practice where there is a very horrible press freedom,
Okay.
or where there is absolutely nothing called press freedom.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So, take for instance, let's draw a kind of comparison now. The media, the roles of the media during the military era, or how media experts or practitioners were faring during the military era is absolutely different. It's illogical to compare it with that of the democratic government. So what I'm saying in essence is that the roles of a specific government, of any society, will influence how media expert functions. Okay.
Maybe I should ask Toby Joseph now, because largely we're saying that the media is the watchdog of the society, and from the look of things, till this moment, right from the beginning of the country till this moment, can you say precisely that the media is faring well, or has been faring well, with that responsibility of, being the watchdog of the society?
Brilliant but tough question there, Simeon, because just like Toji Akitaya mentioned earlier, the media has to look at itself and examine itself. Take what I call the veranda approach. The veranda approach is the media stepping out of its own comfort zone, leave your room, go to the veranda and look inside and see what exactly the inside looks like. So how have we fared? Will I say we fared badly? I'll say no. Should we put it in percentages? Have we done 100%? I'll say no. Maybe pass mark between 50% and 60%. And why will I score the media that low or that high, depending on the side of the divide that you are? And I think it's largely responsible for different things. What is largely responsible for that? I'll mention three. One, which Dr. Kolyalai mentioned, has to do with government control and censorship. You definitely have to talk about the role of the role of the regulators. Do they interfere when it comes to the job of the media? Now, you also have to talk about media ownership. Who are the media owners? So that's an issue. Now, who are the people getting licenses to set up radio stations, TV stations, prints? Who are the people? What is the background when it comes to media? What is their motive? Every former governor or senator now has a radio license somewhere, because they can just quickly influence it and get the president to sign the license. So it's like that. So when that person who has a political bias or background, all right, owns a media organization, what do you think happens? So you have the issue of media ownership. Then you now have the general issue, which has to do with human factors. All right, so does the society dictate largely what the media reports? For example, we are talking about elections. One of the major roles of the media is to ensure fair coverage and reportage of every candidate and political party. But what do we have when it comes to elections? Because that is where media ownership actually raises its head the most. And also, you are going to look at the economic factor other than the political bias. Why? So, let's say Dr. Akitaya and Dr. Alaye are contesting, for example, and then Dr. Alaye is the money bag, And Dr. Aguta, your apologies. Is not the money bag. And I am a media owner, and I want my station to survive. Diesel, the price of diesel now is biting hard, and overhead you're talking about paying staff and stuff like that. So will I lean more to Dr. Lai, who is the money bag, who can afford to pay 12,000 naira per slot of jingle, and the like, so where I can get millions. As against Dr. Agata, who is struggling, say, give us 10 to 20% discount, 50% discount. So do I allow the economic factor to determine who I cover and give media coverage during elections? So these are issues we have to look at. But like I mentioned, and like you rightly pointed out, we must understand that the media has a very important role to play, especially during elections. And it must not be seen as biased and sentimental.
Right.
You have to be very, very fair to all.
Now that leads me to a question. Is there something really called press freedom?
What is it?
You really, because the challenge that we have, even when you look at celebrated television stations, networks now, you look at the CNN, you look at Fox News, you look at, maybe BBC, you say, well, fair reportage, but you find out that, can you really say that the press is really free?
Of course, there's no absolute freedom anywhere in the world, regardless of what involves. Beyond press freedom now, even the so-called right of citizenship is also limited. We have cases whereby the bankrupts, the convicts, blah, blah, not also meant to enjoy the franchise, as it were, even though we have seen this as the right to vote and to be voted for. So when we're talking about freedom, press freedom, largely, we can't say there is absolute press freedom anywhere in the world, even comparatively with most of this Western world. But there should be a minimum. You should understand what I mean. We cannot pretend as if we don't have the proper knowledge of when we say the press is free.
Or let me make it a little more clearer. When Toby was speaking, he was talking about the fact that money bags take on, the scenario we have now is like, whoever has money just begins
have
to,
coverage.
Now the challenge, even government, you have state-owned television, radio stations,
Censorship.
So can you really have a free press?
That is what I'm saying. If you're talking about, Toby mentioned something about ownership. It's not really peculiar to government-owned media organizations. Let me set an example. I don't want to start mentioning names of media organizations here, but we know that we have a quite number of people that own media firms, media organizations, who are into politics. Definitely there cannot be absolute freedom, but there can be freedom. Let me differentiate what I mean as absolute and freedom now. This time around, when you talk of a press freedom has to do with independent reportage, giving liberty for independent reportage. And when we also talk about independent reportage, you mean that the reporter or the media or the medium involved has that independent right to make any report, regardless of the background or ownership. We can't hide under this. This is a state-owned television station. You will agree with me that if you're going to report anything here, you have to be very, very careful with how you come on here about it. Even though you are going to say anything or call the attention of the public to anything about the actions and reactions of the state government, it will have to be modified. Unlike, you know what I mean?
But
So,
when you look from that perspective, because you take on government, you say, okay, government is controlling. You look at.
I've not said government is controlling.
No, I'm not even saying you said so. You look at the money bag. You say the money bag is controlling.
Let me explain that.
You look at,
Toby mentioned something about economy.
Yeah.
You cannot rule out economy as the superstructure of any society.
Okay, maybe we move straight to the next question. Okay, maybe you should just land.
I was going to explain that. So talking about economy this time around, any media organization whereby they take home we have a quite number of media organizations out there, especially when you talk of print. We have some of them just use the ID card to operate.
Okay.
There are quite a number of them. So what do you expect? What do you expect with a journalist who is not actually on a regular or consistent payroll,
so
except with the ID card?
So we'll still come to you, doctor. We'll still
Okay,
before you do it, because the issue you have brought is still we're going to dissect that, but we're looking at the 2023 general election.
Exactly. People, we've said it here that the media is expected to set agenda for the society and of course for politicians as well. So 2023 is around the corner. A lot is being expected of the media as well. So I want to ask you, what kind of agenda should the media be setting in 2023 to change the face of leadership in this country?
Brilliant. First, when you talk about agenda setting, you are talking about the role the media must play in bridging the gap between the leaders and the led, and the politicians and the electorates, so that they can make informed choices and vote according to their conscience during elections. Now, who is controlling the narrative ahead of 2023? This is an age where people are talking about tribe, people are talking about ethnic nationality, people are talking about the religion of the candidate or aspirant as of now. People are talking about their capacity, not even their capacity, but they are talking about their qualifications. At this age in 2022, we are talking about whether somebody finished secondary school,
primary school,
all those petty narratives during elections. We are not talking about the 3 C's, the character, the competence and capacity of these aspirants themselves. So what are we scrutinizing? Are we discussing the issues that the world is battling with in the 21st century? We are talking about our political debate and national discourse is centered around the herdsmen and cattle, and and those mundane issues. As important as those issues are to the economic growth of Nigeria, are we addressing the other issues? What should inform the opinion of a voter as to why he should vote for so-so-so candidate? Why should he vote for so-so-so party? Where is the manifesto? What is their program? What is their agenda? When you talk about developmental agenda for development or for sustainable development, what are the issues? Are you talking about power supply? What is your plan to solve power? What is your plan for portable water? Adequate supply of water in Abeokuta in Ogun State, for example. So the media should ask the right questions that would bring out the right answers that would help the people to scrutinize and say, hey, this money bag is just all talk, and he doesn't really have a plan for health. It doesn't have a plan for sports development. It doesn't have a plan for women and social development. It doesn't have a plan for youth development and engagement or employment. So these are the issues. The media must begin to set that agenda clearly and make it very, very open and create the space and avenue for the people to engage. So when those who are aspiring or who are now candidates eventually come to radio stations or TV stations, do you make sure that the people don't participate, you stifle them, you don't allow audience participation, and when they do you allow them to ask the right questions? So these are issues.
Okay, maybe I should ask Kunyalaye this one. He talked about the need for the right questions to be asked. Do you see the media prepared, the kind of people that we have, in the industry doing justice to that aspect of
there is absolutely nothing wrong with the media experts, the practitioners. They're quite good. Of course, we still have some of the controversial ones. But quite honestly, Nigeria is blessed with highly gifted journalists. You are inclusive and all the likes. But like I've said, the very first thing is the orientation and the enabling environment. Of course, we do have some media organizations coming up with debates, setting agendas by calling on some politicians to, but that is not enough. It will also be a good thing if media organizations can be more aggressive in the area of political orientations, different electoral symposia, organizing, educating people on, some people don't even know the word franchise, what it entails. People don't right to vote and to be voted for. When you say the principle of franchise is the right to vote and to be voted for, and you go to the polling booth, vote against your conscience because they stop you over there and probably drop something in your pocket and all that, you are voting against yourself. You have deprived yourself ignorantly of your right. I think media needs to also go in these areas, sensitize people the more, tell them the implications, But like I've said earlier, the environment, the system, there must be a proper overhauling of the system vis-a-vis the economic orientations, the professional orientations. You imagine journalists asking one of the politicians a kind of, you are editorializing. Why asking that question? You've asked in a subjective manner. So these are problems. These are challenges.
To sit up.
All right.
These are challenges. I think NUJ and other stakeholders should be able to do something.
We're still going to come to AUJ. We're going to come to the regulatory bodies. We're going to look at the regulatory bodies, even though with a little care. Now, Toby, while Doctor was talking and while you were talking about the need to engage, the need to, to make sure we set the pace. We need to make sure we define, discussion. But within the substructure that we have, how does the press, how does the individual journalist survive the pressure, even from the boss, who doesn't want the truth to be said, or knows the truth, doesn't want you to say it totally. You want to say the truth. You are determined as a press guy with your orientation. You are raised, you are nurtured, you know the rules, and suddenly you are hampered. Unfortunately, some will say resign. But resigning isn't that simple.
Yes.
So, how does an individual, how does the journalist, navigate these challenges? Because we are getting to that point now. Yeah. Some guys will call you. You know that this guy doesn't have the stuff. At the end of the day, he leaves your station or he leaves you. He gives you 500,000 naira. You are stuck. You say you have a policy. You are a straightforward journalist. You are not looking anywhere. But you have some challenges. So how does
expensive?
So many issues confronting you. So how does the journalist? Now election time is here. The money bags are here. Your conscience is there. How does a journalist now navigate through all this?
Okay, so I'll mention three things, and I'll try to use an analogy to drive home my points. The first thing is, like they say, journalists are not made, they are born. What do I mean by that? It's because people who turn out to be great journalists or broadcasters usually are wired differently. And when I say wired differently, they must have a mind of their own, independent-minded people who also believe in the pursuit of equity, equality, justice, and truth, and fairness. So these are people who have that in their character. It's in them. All right. So that's why they say journalists are not made; they are born. Of course, you can be trained and then brushed and packaged.
But if it's not there,
if it's not there,
it's not there.
So that's one. Secondly, we've said that the media plays the role of watchdog. If you understand what that role is, then you must understand that you cannot afford to betray the people and the society. A journalist or a broadcaster is a public servant. Even though they work for private establishments sometimes, they must first realize that they are public servants. And what do I mean by that? It means that the public repose in them confidence and trust. And so you cannot afford to betray that trust. So my analogy, which is the third point, is some of us who are parents, apologies to seniors.
You just said some of us, so it's covered.
All right.
Who told you I was a parent?
Okay. So we all understand what parenting is, how you have to be responsible to your words and how to be a responsible parent. No matter the pressure, no matter the challenges, no matter what you're facing, what you're going through, you definitely know that you have to do right by that child. All right? Irrespective of whether you had a bad night or whether there is no money in your pocket. And children nowadays, they don't understand that. So what am I trying to draw there is to make you see why a parent must still continue to be a parent. That's why the challenge is. And do right by the child. It's the same role that the media has. The people, the public that you serve, directly or indirectly, are like your children. You cannot afford to shirk that responsibility, to fail in that responsibility, and not to do right by the people. You must understand that there is a responsibility that is very, very weighty, sitting there on your shoulders, and you have to carry it. And that is why you cannot betray the people's trust.
Okay.
People who betray, media organizations who betray the people's trust go under. They lose patronage after some time. They become less relevant.
Okay.
Because people will be like, oh no, don't mind those people. They can't be trusted.
Okay. Let's look at what is central to this our discussion, which is the economy of the industry. We've said a whole lot about how people would manipulate information just because they have to get something at the end of the day. And when you look across Nigeria, for example, you see that is largely what is happening. It's a big problem. So how do we remain professional? It's a very big one. How do we remain professional? At the same time, meet our needs, because it is central to whatever it is we are doing. Things are very, very expensive these days. They also want to have their own, awards, go to the best schools and all of that. So navigating through and not allowing politicians to always, get them at the end of the day. How do we navigate through that stage?
Oh my, yeah, quite a technical question, Simia, but at least I will try to, answer it in a way. You see, you cannot rule out livelihoods as the basis for any profession, journalism, media inclusive. It is quite very challenging for journalists when they find themselves at this very tight corner. It is indeed a tight corner because you don't want to move away from professionalism. You want to uphold the ethics of the profession. At the same time, there are responsibilities that are just winking at you that you must prove that you are indeed a responsible parent or fellow, as it were. How do you now tackle this? It's very simple. Toby was talking about innate potential that journalists are born, they are made or something, if you're talking about journalism or media as a profession, people that ought to come into media should be, they're not super beings, but they are people that are revered with knowledge. It's just these days where, because of challenges, economic challenges and all the likes, that you now see everything canary moving into media. No, in those days, it isn't so. Right. Before you can go into such a profession, it must be in you. Haven't you heard about some of these revered classical journalists? Some of them did not even have university degree. They are more intelligent and professional than even those that have gone to. Apologies, I'm not really saying that university degree is not relevant this time around, but I'm still talking about innate potentials. Like Toby said, that it must be there. Then they now help you to package, but you must have it. Now, part of that innate potential is how to be able to maneuver or navigate when you find yourself in such a situation. Let me start with government-owned media organizations. I remember those days when I was with BCUS during the times of Alawakala. It got to a stage that we needed to clean up the branded part of the BCUS card, because we have BCUS, because once you go on the market, like, BCUS, as a, what? You're not going to you're not going to give any. It got to say that they were stoning, some of the BCUS reporters, because they felt that we were not reporting what the public actually wanted. Journalists in this era are facing a lot of issues, and they need to explore what I call innate professionalism and understand media diplomacy.
Right.
If you don't have media diplomacy, you cannot succeed or try in this very challenging.
Okay, now I'm going to come on to Toby now, because we're now zeroing on the 2023 general elections.
Yes.
We've been having these elections now, and the challenges are still there. I like that, that tells you also that the people are watching the media.
Mm-hmm.
And they know a good medium or a good media organization, by its own track record.
Yes.
So we are entering 2023 general elections. In a matter of months now, these things are going to hot up. What are the things you will expect to see on our landscape? There's one other thing before I even go to that, and that's the fact that the social media, the social media networks now, they have become a much more stronger.
Bloggers and all that.
The blogs. So, will you call them media? That's number one. Would you say that's also a media platform? And then how does the original normal print and electronic conventional media, how do you now break through all of these now to be able to affirm your own stance within the superstructure?
All right, so two very critical points that you made. So let me first tackle the last one, and I'll go to the second one. The last one, which is talking about the new media and the social media. All right, so let's not confuse the social networks to the new media. Because even conventional, traditional media organizations are now on the social and new media space because they have to move with time. If not, they'll be left behind. When was the last time you bought a newspaper? But you can visit the Punch, visit the Nation. You can visit all this BBC. They are all on digital platforms now because it's not about readership. It's not about the number of people visiting their sites. That's how they get paid now. As against the number of news, you know what newsprint is, and printing newspapers, distribution across the country. Oh, come on. If you see the trucks of maybe the Nation newspaper or Punch newspaper coming in the evening bringing unsold papers, you begin to ask yourself, so how are these newspapers surviving? That's right. So the new media has come to stay. How do we foolproof it? It's a tough job, I agree. Okay. So the media has to play the role of fact-checking.
Okay.
The media, the conventional and traditional media, has to make sure that it is apart when it comes to authentic information. Okay. Don't push false narratives. Don't be caught posting fake news, wrong pictures. I recall the vice president, current vice president, was also caught in the act unknowingly, actually. Maybe they just sent some pictures to him of their rally in Kano in 2015, whereas the picture he posted of the so-called rally was a picture of Rehan Bonke's concert, crusade in Ogbomoso or something, years ago. Where you just saw heads of people until it was corrected. I know, apologies. So that's what social media can do to you. Okay. So the media has to fact check, and there are simple techniques now to fact check. So that those who own blogs and who do not have professional trainings when it comes to journalism do not control the narrative. That's why I said that the media, earlier I said the media must control the narrative. Okay. Now that's one. Now, to the second question, what should be the issues ahead of 2023? Nigeria is at a crossroads. We are talking about economic dislocations. We are talking about corruption. We are talking about wanton destruction of lives and property in the guise of kidnapping, banditry, terrorism, all right, kidnap for ransom. So there are so many insecurity issues that should dominate our discussions as regards who is this person that wants to become the president? What do you want to do to tackle our security challenges? What are your plans for corruption? Are you setting up special courts? Are you strengthening the anti-corruption agencies? Are you going, what are your plans on jobs? There was a time in the United States, I think in the 2016 elections, you would hear jobs, 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 jobs. Why? Because the US economy was about job creation. People were losing jobs, so but you have to...
Do you see that noise yet?
That's what I'm saying.
Do you see that noise yet?
That is not happening yet. So we are beginning to focus on brickbats between political godsons and political sons. Is it a son? Is it not? Is it betraying? Those are the mundane issues that we are discussing instead of focusing on the real issues. Now, are we setting an agenda for security agencies? What are they doing to make sure that the Southeast, for example, is safe? How are you stopping unknown gunmen? How are INEC officials going to move out and mobilize on election day without fear of death, of not returning, without intimidation? Are we setting an agenda for security agencies? Are we setting an agenda for INEC? What are they doing to register more people, to delineate more constituencies and units, to create more polling units? And after that, is the awareness there? What is the role of the National Orientation Agency? These are the issues. Yes, to make sure that there is increased participation in 2023, that the people collect their PVCs, that they come out to vote on election day. This should be the issues.
Okay, the issues are clear. We all know that. But earlier we've discussed about the challenges now, the media owners. So you can't rule out the politicians that are media owners out of all this discussion. They are the one that goes out to say they want to vie for political offices and they want to push their narrative and they use these platforms. So if these are the things we need to look out for in every election, and 2023 is not different, how do we successfully do that when you know precisely that the owners of these media organizations are still the politicians? Maybe not all of them, but therefore there is need for us to do something different. I don't know what is different that we must do in this 2023. Is it that we engage, or there is need for another level of engagement with the media owners to salvage the country from, all these crises that we are actually confronted with, or that the practitioners themselves, the people that are being employed, should do something strategic in this 2023 election, just so we could have a change, in the atmosphere of things in the country.
Yeah, I'll corroborate. I will go for the very last one that you said. I think the regulatory agencies are not doing enough, if you ask me, or perhaps they're a little bit biased. Right, if you're talking about politicians having some of these media organizations, yeah, I quite agree with you. But having media organizations isn't a crime now. Definitely, whoever owns a business will still have a say or controls it. But the regulatory agencies, what are they doing to cut the excesses or the influence that they have over the practitioners or their employees? That is another thing. I know that NBC has been doing, enough, or doing at least to a particular level in ensuring that it checks the excesses of some media electronic organizations. Even though, I'm going to say that, even though some have still alleged NBC that it's biased, right, that there are quite very odious things that will go on NTA, that the NBC will just look either way, and maybe the half of 1/3 of it cannot even be relayed on any of that I don't want to mention. I can still mention NTA, but that cannot be relayed in any of the privately owned electronic organizations. So I think there should be objective assessment. That's the word. Regulatory agencies should be objective with the way they assess and regulate the operational structures of some of these media organizations.
Do you think there is need to still work on the people or the caliber of people that actually get the licenses now?
Yes, that's another thing. That's where I'm going. It's only in Nigeria that you see someone without having education certificate that will go to CAC and get registered nursery and primary school. It is only in Nigeria you see someone who has not even been trained in journalism or have any knowledge, any certificate in media, that will go and open television or radio station. All these things supposed to be part of the prerequisites. If you have this part of the prerequisites, part of the requirement for setting up any media organizations, it will go a long way to check the excess, because some of these people are even naive. To be honest with you, they actually don't want to make money. They just want to make money. They just want to make money at the same time. They are ignorant.
Doctor, something happened just this Easter, during this Easter celebration. There was a copy, like agege bread.
Yes, something of that kind.
It rose. And the question you want to ask yourself is, how did this get through to the newspaper?
That is still what I'm saying.
Because the content actually, by every analysis or you want to look at it, it shouldn't have flown.
Sir, you can't give what you don't have, except you are a magician. Okay. It's only what you have that you give. Okay. Now, the problem starts from who owns what. Okay. You wouldn't imagine now somebody who does not have the knowledge of media setting up a media organization. Definitely, such set of editors or employees that work there may be his light.
Okay.
You see, proper checks and objective way of recruiting media experts, media practitioners, needs to be taken into cognizance. If we do not take all these things very seriously, we will always have the problem.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying now? So it still boils to that, because you can't expect me setting up something and I will now employ those that do not have the background knowledge of that particular. It's going to mess up the whole thing.
All right, Simiat, the last words now. We are coasting home.
Okay, let me land on.
Land on me. How will I survive if you land on me?
Okay, talking about the content now,
Yeah.
the content of the media, organizations, what we push out. Some have said that there is a thin line between telling the stories of what happened and that of national security. They talk about the need. Constantly, the government is always coming to use that phrase, national security, and all of that. And as a practitioner, really, how do you draw the line? How do you see something happened here, and it happens? It is true that you want to report it. And if you report it, there is going to be a lot of issues after reporting it. How do you judge it? I don't know how you can.
Well, it's a tough job, really, because when you talk about national security, if you look at the Defense Ministry, the NIS, they have a whole lot of things that they hide under national security. So it's a tricky one. So you don't get your fingers burnt. At the same time, as you have national security and be responsible when it comes to your reportage, you also have to understand that you have a responsibility to inform the people. So you gatekeep, you do self-censorship. The media has to do self-censorship, and then at the same time present facts and accurate information.
Right.
So if an explosion happened and so numbers of soldiers died, all right, so do you owe the people that truth, or do you want to hide it because of national security? So,
all right. The last words now. I think you're already giving us what I can take your last words on this. Now, Doctor, your own last words as we go.
Well, I want to advise media practitioners to desist as we are preparing for a very crucial assignment. It is indeed a very crucial one, the 2023 general elections. I just want to advise media practitioners to be more objective and devoid of embellishments when it comes to reportage, and understand that they are representing the public, and the public has reposed confidence in them. So it is important that they come back and give accurate information without misleading or misinforming the entire society, and we will have a very free and fair election.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'm sure we've had. But before we go, maybe I would also use this medium to say our own views. The fact that we've talked to the press, we must also let the owners know.
That's right.
That events have changed.
yes.
I remember some time ago when a traditional ruler died, there's always this noise. You don't announce immediately. The news had already been blown abroad, and you are saying the man has not died. So people should wake up also and to align with the press. I want to thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this. Dr. Kule Alaye, political scientist, it's always a pleasure to have you. And Toby,
doctor in media.
I think he's making his own part. I like that. Thank you so much for being part of this discussion.
Thank you for having me.
All right, that's the package this morning. The first segment, the interview segment on New Dawn. We're going to have the other segment shortly. We'll be back.